Most people think they lose because they're not smart enough. That's a lie. They lose because they react. Too fast, too emotionally, too predictably. The world doesn't reward honesty. It rewards control. And every time you react emotionally, you tell the world exactly how to manipulate you. The world doesn't reward the loudest emotions. It punishes them. Every time you react without thinking, you hand control to someone else. Anger makes you predictable. Insecurity makes you manipulable. Excitement makes you careless. And the people who understand this don't need to beat you. They just wait. They let you expose yourself. They let you talk too much, decide too fast, commit too early. Emotionally reactive people don't lose because they lack intelligence. They lose because their emotions move faster than their judgment. In a world built on timing, whoever controls the moment controls the outcome. And when your emotions are in charge, the moment is never yours. Look closely, and you'll see the pattern everywhere. The argument you could have won if you'd stayed quiet for 10 seconds. The negotiation you lost because your ego needed to feel respected. The opportunity that slipped away because frustration made you rush. Emotional reactivity turns private feelings into public signals. And signals are data. When people can read you, they can plan around you. When they can plan around you, you're already behind. Calm people don't always look powerful, but they always are, because power lives in restraint. The ability to pause is the ability to choose, and choice is the difference between reacting and winning. Most people think emotions are a strength because they feel real. They confuse intensity with authenticity, but intensity without control is just noise. The truth is uncomfortable. Emotional reactivity makes you easy to replace, easy to provoke, easy to outmaneuver. The more expressive you are under pressure, the less leverage you have. While you're explaining how you feel, someone else is deciding what they'll do. While you're defending your pride, someone else is shaping the outcome. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about mastering them. There's a difference between having emotions and being owned by them. One is human, the other is expensive. Before we go any further, let me be clear about something. This isn't about becoming cold, heartless, or disconnected. This knowledge isn't for harming people or manipulating them. It's for protection. It's for clarity. It's for staying in control when situations try to take that control away from you. The goal is not to eliminate emotion. The goal is to stop emotion from driving the car while logic sits in the back seat. You're here to understand the game, not to become the villain. And if that line ever blurs, you've already lost the advantage this understanding gives you. Now, if this is already challenging the way you see yourself, pause for a second and do this with me. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose control over reaction. Not because it looks good, not because it sounds strong, but because repetition shapes identity. When you name the standard, you raise it. And the standard you set for yourself determines how others treat you. This is how you start shifting from someone who reacts to someone who responds, from someone who gets pulled into chaos to someone who observes it and decides when and if to engage. Here's the framework you're about to learn. Emotionally reactive people lose because they give away 3 things without realizing it: timing, information, and leverage. Strategic people protect all 3. They don't rush decisions. They don't reveal their inner state. They don't fight every battle presented to them. Instead, they wait. They watch. They calculate. While others argue, they gather data. While others vent, they measure consequences. While others demand fairness, they work with reality as it is. Most people mistake calm for weakness. In truth, calm is compression. It's strength held in reserve. This is where the separation happens. On one side are people who let emotions dictate their moves. They feel wronged, so they act. They feel challenged, so they react. They feel ignored, so they escalate. On the other side are people who feel all the same emotions, but don't obey them. They understand that feelings are signals, not commands. They extract information from emotion without broadcasting it. That's why they're harder to read, harder to manipulate, harder to corner. And in any competitive environment, career, relationships, negotiations, the hardest person to read is the hardest person to beat. In the next section, we're going to break down exactly why emotional reactivity fails at a mechanical level, how it destroys timing, exposes intent, and hands power to anyone patient enough to wait you out. Then we'll start building the opposite, the habits and mental shifts that give calm people their unfair advantage. No hype, no theatrics, just patterns that work because they align with how human psychology actually functions. Stay with me, because once you see these patterns clearly, you won't be able to unsee them. And more importantly, you won't keep losing to them. Why emotional reactivity fails. The first thing emotional reactivity destroys is timing. Timing is everything in the real world, and reactive people almost always get it wrong. They speak when they should wait. They decide when they should observe. They commit when they should stay flexible. Emotions compress time. They create urgency where none exists. Anger tells you to respond now. Fear tells you to secure certainty immediately. Excitement tells you to jump before thinking. Strategic people understand this. Whoever controls timing controls leverage. When you react emotionally, you give that control away. You move on someone else's schedule, not your own. The second thing emotional reactivity destroys is decision quality. Strong emotions narrow perception. When you're emotionally charged, you don't see the full board. You see one square. You focus on relief instead of results, on winning the moment instead of shaping the outcome. That's why reactive decisions feel right immediately and wrong later. The brain under emotional pressure is optimized for survival, not strategy. It wants to escape discomfort fast. Strategic thinking requires the opposite: tolerance for discomfort, patience with uncertainty, and the ability to delay action until clarity improves. Calm people don't make better decisions because they're smarter. They make better decisions because they're not in a hurry to feel better. Then there's predictability. Emotional reactions follow patterns, and patterns can be exploited. If someone knows anger makes you talk, they'll provoke you. If they know insecurity makes you over-explain, they'll question you. If they know praise makes you careless, they'll flatter you. Emotional reactivity turns your inner state into a roadmap for others. You think you're expressing yourself, but you're actually giving instructions. Strategic people pay close attention to this. They don't need to overpower you. They just need to press the right emotional button and let you do the rest. This is why emotionally reactive people struggle in negotiations. Negotiation is not about logic alone. It's about emotional control. The moment the other side senses desperation, frustration, or attachment, the balance shifts. You start conceding too early. You start explaining your position instead of strengthening it. You start negotiating against yourself. Calm negotiators don't threaten. They don't rush. They don't fill silence. Silence makes reactive people uncomfortable, so they talk. And every extra word reveals priorities, limits, and fears. Calm people let the silence work for them. They understand that discomfort is a tool. The same pattern shows up in careers. Emotionally reactive people take feedback personally. They defend instead of listening. They react to office politics instead of reading them. They vent in moments that should be quiet. Over time, this creates a reputation, not of competence, but of volatility. Decision-makers don't promote unpredictability. They promote stability under pressure. They promote people who can absorb tension without broadcasting it. Not because those people are emotionless, but because they're reliable. Reliability is power in professional environments. If people can't predict how you'll react, they won't trust you with high-stakes responsibility. Relationships suffer for the same reason. Emotional reactivity turns temporary feelings into permanent damage. Words said in anger don't disappear just because the emotion passes. Reactions create memories, and memories shape trust. Reactive people often feel misunderstood, but the truth is simpler. Their emotions speak louder than their intentions. Calm people create safety, not by being passive, but by being measured. They don't escalate every conflict. They don't try to win every moment. They choose which issues deserve energy and which ones deserve distance. That selectivity preserves respect, and respect is what keeps relationships functional over time. At a deeper level, emotional reactivity fails because it gives away leverage. Leverage comes from options, from flexibility, from the ability to walk away mentally before you have to walk away physically. Reactive people are attached to outcomes, to validation, to being right. That attachment shows, and anything that shows can be used. Strategic people detach internally before they engage externally. They don't need the moment to go their way. That freedom changes everything. When you're not emotionally dependent on a specific outcome, you negotiate harder, wait longer, and choose better. None of this means emotions are bad. They're information. They tell you when something matters, when a boundary is crossed, when a value is threatened. But information is only useful if you don't confuse it with instruction. Emotionally reactive people let feelings dictate action. Strategic people let feelings inform analysis. That single shift is the dividing line. In the next section, we're going to move from diagnosis to contrast. What calm, strategic people do differently in real situations, and how they convert emotional discipline into quiet, consistent advantage without suppressing who they are or compromising their values. What strategic people do differently. Strategic people don't win because they feel less. They win because they delay expression. The pause is their first advantage. When something triggers them, they don't rush to discharge the emotion. They sit with it. They observe it. They ask one quiet question before doing anything else. What is the outcome I want here? That question immediately changes the direction of their response. Instead of reacting to the stimulus, they start shaping the situation. While emotionally reactive people focus on how something feels, strategic people focus on where it's going, and direction always beats intensity. One of the most powerful tools calm people use is silence. Silence isn't emptiness, it's pressure. In conversations, silence forces the other person to reveal more than they intended. In conflicts, silence removes fuel from escalation. In negotiations, silence shifts discomfort to the other side. Emotionally reactive people rush to fill gaps because gaps feel unsafe to them. Strategic people understand that gaps are where leverage lives. They let silence stretch just long enough for the dynamic to change, not as a tactic, but as a natural result of self-control. When you're comfortable not reacting, you control the tempo. Another key difference is how strategic people handle information. Reactive people leak information constantly, through tone, body language, urgency, and over-explanation. Strategic people compress information. They don't reveal their full position early. They don't show excitement too soon. They don't express frustration when things don't go their way. This doesn't mean they're dishonest. It means they're disciplined. Information is power, and power loses value when it's given away cheaply. Calm people share selectively. They listen more than they speak. And because they speak less, what they say carries more weight. Strategic people also separate ego from outcome. This is where emotionally reactive people struggle the most. Ego wants to win the moment. It wants validation, recognition, and emotional relief. Strategy wants results. Calm people are willing to look patient instead of impressive. They let others take credit if it serves the bigger picture. They step back from arguments that don't move the needle. They understand that not every challenge deserves a response, and not every insult deserves a correction. The need to prove yourself is a liability. The ability to let things slide is an asset. In high-pressure situations, strategic people shift from expression to observation. They watch how others behave when stressed. They notice who rushes, who overtalks, who tries to dominate, and who withdraws. Emotional pressure reveals patterns, and patterns reveal leverage. While reactive people are busy defending themselves, strategic people are collecting data. They're learning who can be trusted, who can't handle uncertainty, and who makes decisions emotionally. That knowledge compounds. Over time, it allows them to anticipate moves before they happen and position themselves accordingly. This is also where emotional discipline turns into confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need reassurance. When you know you won't be thrown off by pressure, you stop fearing it. When you know you don't need to react immediately, you stop feeling cornered. Strategic people aren't fearless. They're grounded. They trust their ability to respond later instead of reacting now. That trust shows. People sense it, and they respond differently to someone who isn't easily rattled. Calm becomes a signal of authority. What makes this approach sustainable is that it's not about manipulation. It's about alignment. Strategic people don't fake calm. They cultivate it. They process emotions privately so they don't have to perform them publicly. They reflect before they respond. They choose actions that match their long-term interests instead of short-term feelings. This is how emotional discipline becomes ethical power. You're not controlling others. You're controlling yourself. And self-control is the only form of control that doesn't eventually collapse. When you put all of this together, the pattern becomes clear. Emotionally reactive people are loud, fast, and exposed. Strategic people are quiet, patient, and protected. One group broadcasts intent. The other preserves leverage. One group seeks relief. The other seeks results. In the final section, we're going to bring this full circle. How emotional discipline becomes an unfair advantage over time. How it reshapes identity, and how to lock this shift in without becoming detached from your values or disconnected from the people around you. Transformation, identity, shift and closure. Over time, emotional discipline compounds into an unfair advantage. Not overnight, not dramatically, quietly. While emotionally reactive people burn energy correcting mistakes, repairing damage, and explaining themselves, calm people keep moving forward. They make fewer irreversible decisions. They preserve optionality. They don't get dragged into unnecessary conflicts. This isn't because life treats them better. It's because they treat pressure differently. They understand that most situations don't require an immediate response, only an intelligent one, and intelligence shows up best when it isn't rushed. This shift changes how others experience you. People stop testing you. They stop provoking you. They stop assuming they can push you into revealing your hand. Not because you've become intimidating, but because you've become unreadable. Emotional restraint creates psychological distance. and distance creates respect. When you don't react the way people expect, you interrupt their script. And when someone can't predict your behavior, they can't control the interaction. Calm doesn't announce power. It signals it. Here's something most people miss. Emotional control doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. You still set boundaries. You still say no. You still take action. The difference is timing. You choose when to act instead of being forced into action by emotion. That choice protects your reputation, your relationships, and your leverage. Over time, people learn that when you speak, it matters. When you move, it's intentional. And when you're silent, it's not weakness, it's calculation. This is where identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs to be understood, validated, or defended in every moment. You start seeing yourself as someone who observes first and decides later. You move from responder to strategist, from participant to architect. Emotionally reactive people live inside events. Strategic people stand slightly outside them. That distance is not detachment from life. It's alignment with reality. It allows you to care without being controlled by what you care about. There's also a deeper form of freedom here. When you no longer need emotional release in every situation, you become harder to manipulate. Threats lose power. Provocation loses its effect. Urgency loses its grip. You don't need to prove strength because you can feel it internally. And people sense that. They may not understand why they trust you, why they hesitate before challenging you, or why your presence feels stabilizing, but they respond to it anyway. Emotional mastery changes the room without saying a word. Now, this doesn't mean you withdraw from humanity. It means you engage with it on your terms. You still feel anger, disappointment, excitement, and frustration, but you treat them as signals, not commands. You give yourself space to think before you speak, to choose before you commit, to align action with outcome. This is how calm becomes ethical power. You're not dominating others. You're mastering yourself. And self-mastery is the only kind of power that doesn't rot over time. If you want to lock this in, don't try to change everything at once. For the next 7 days, practice one rule: pause before response. Not forever. Just long enough to ask what outcome you want. In arguments, delay your reply. In decisions, delay your commitment. In moments of pressure, delay your expression. Watch what changes. Watch how people reveal more when you don't rush. Watch how situations soften when you don't escalate. This is how discipline turns into instinct. If this shifted how you see emotional control and power, let me know. Hit the like button so this reaches people who need it. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns on psychology, strategy, and self-mastery. And in the comments, write this: I choose response over reaction. Not as a slogan, but as a standard. Because emotionally reactive people don't lose because they feel too much. They lose because they act too fast. And once you slow down, observe clearly, and choose deliberately, you stop playing the losing role and start shaping outcomes instead.